What's up, 7th and 8th graders? I'm super sorry that I'm not there in person tonight, but I'm really excited to be able to share this message with you tonight. So as we get started, I have a question for you guys. Have you ever gotten a song stuck in your head? This happens to me all the time. And it's not like the whole song, like I get one line stuck in my head and I just sing it or I hum it or I whistle it over and over and over again, and usually Ryan gets super annoyed with me. One of the songs that always gets in my head is Baby Shark. Can anyone relate to this, right? We have songs all the time running through our heads. But songs aren't always the only thing that get stuck in our heads. Sometimes it's like a thought or an idea. So I know for me, oftentimes it'll be like 8:30, 9 p.m. and I'm winding down for the night and I'm watching a movie, and all of a sudden I'll get this just single thought that pops into my head. And that thought is Doritos. And all of a sudden I can't think about anything but Doritos until I get to eat some Doritos. Does this ever happen to you guys? Our minds get fixated on one thing and we can't think about anything else. But songs and food aren't the only things that get stuck in our head, right? Oftentimes people can get stuck in our head. Maybe it's a famous TikToker or YouTuber or somebody that you've seen on the internet that you think is super cool and you can't stop thinking about them and how much you want to be like them or look like them. Or maybe it's a friend, someone you see at school that you're like, I really want to be best friends with that person. They're so cool. Or maybe it's what we've been talking about in this series over the last couple weeks. Maybe it's a boy or a girl that you find yourself really interested in. Or maybe it's just the idea of dating. Maybe it's the idea of having a girlfriend or a boyfriend, but oftentimes these things get in our heads and we can't stop thinking about it. Here's the thing, this is not a bad thing. In fact, I want to be really clear that in middle school, it's really normal to think about dating or think about a boy or a girl that you might be interested in. That's a really normal thing to experience in the time of life that you find yourself in right now. But here's when it can become an issue, when it becomes an obsession. Maybe you've experienced this with a friend. Maybe you have a friend and when you talk to that person, all they can talk about is the person that they like or the person that they're dating. And it becomes so annoying to you listening to them talk about that person. See, we've all experienced this. So how do we know when it becomes an obsession? And the answer is when the person that you like or the person you're interested in or the person you're dating is the only person you think about, they're the only thing you talk about, and maybe they're the only person you spend time with. Or maybe just the idea of having a girlfriend or a boyfriend is the only thing that fills your headspace. And maybe you're hearing me right now and you're like, Kristen, I've never dated someone, I've never even wanted to date someone. And that's totally fine. But this is good information for you to know, even if you've never experienced this, because when it does come time for you to date, you might experience this tendency to be obsessed with the person that you're interested in. So again, even if you've never experienced it, keep listening because it's something that will be applicable for you as you get older and older. So even though it's really normal to think a lot about the girl or the boy that we might be interested in, it's also kind of dangerous. And you might be asking why? Why is this obsession so dangerous? And I think one of the biggest things is that when we become so isolated with one person, everything else in our life starts to fade away. And we start to miss out on things going on maybe in our friend group or at school, and we isolate ourselves. And what happens when we do that is we start to care less and less about the other people in our life, our friends, our family. Maybe you know what I'm talking about. Maybe you've been around a couple that when they're together, the whole room seems to fade away and they can't hear or see anything else that's going on. And when you're with them, you feel less important. Do you know what I mean? We don't ever want to make people feel less important because we're so obsessed with one single person. And this goes back to the concept that Christian talked about a few weeks ago when we talked about consent. He said that all people deserve to be honored and we have to honor those people. So when we become obsessed with one person, we tend to dishonor the other people in our lives. So it's okay to care about a specific girl or a specific boy, but we have to be careful to not be obsessed. So what's the balance? So as usual, we're gonna look at the Bible and see what it tells us about this topic. Now, we have to understand that back in the days of the Bible, they didn't have dating the same way that we have dating. So we don't have like a verse that says, this is how much time you should spend with your significant other and this is how much time you should not. The Bible isn't that clear on this topic, but the Bible does tell us how we should live and we can apply some of the insights that we get in the Bible to a lot of different areas of our lives. So, we have this book called Ephesians, and it's written by this guy, Paul. And Paul was writing to the church that was happening in this place. The place was called Ephesus. And he's telling them how they should live. And we're going to look in chapter 5, and I love chapter 5 because Paul is talking a lot about just like common sense, how to be a good person. I feel like this chapter is kind of like how to be a good person 101. Paul talks a lot about how to live like Jesus lived. So there's this verse, chapter 5, verse 15, and it says this. So be careful how you live. Don't live like fools, but like those who are wise. So Paul is basically saying, hey, make good choices. Have you ever heard your mom or dad tell you this on your way out the door to hang out with your friends? Make good choices, right? Don't be unwise, be wise. Paul says to live wisely. So what exactly does that mean, right? The Bible doesn't give us this hard and fast right and wrong when it comes to how much time we spend thinking about other people. But it does say that we need to live wise. So the question might not be, is this right or wrong for me to think about this person this much? The question is it good for me? Would a relationship with this person be good for me? Is this wise or is it unwise? So this has to make us ask the question, when does an interest in another person become obsessive? And I think this point is going to be different for all of us. Maybe for you, it's okay to say hi to the person that you're interested in one time at school, but maybe when you make sure that you're outside their classroom at the end of every single period at school to say hi, maybe then you're being a little bit obsessive. So let me give you a quick example of this. A lot of you know that me and Pastor Ryan are married. And when we first started dating, the social media app Snapchat had just come out and it had just become big and popular. And so we both had it and we would be talking on that back and forth throughout the day. And we'd also text throughout the day. And I thought it was really normal that we would be talking on 2 different platforms all day long. I mean, that's what you're supposed to do in dating relationships, right? But turns out Ryan didn't think that was so fun. And so it didn't take long for him to say, hey, can we maybe not talk so much? I won't go into the details of how I responded to that conversation with Ryan. But here's the thing, Ryan and I are married now, and to this day, we obviously have a much stronger commitment now than we did when we were dating, and to this day, we do not talk constantly throughout the day, because we're both whole people who need our own space and independence. And we're going to get into that concept a little bit more in a second. Okay, so let's go back to Ephesians 5, and we're going to read verse 16. It's the verse right after the part about being wise. And Paul says this. Make the most of every opportunity in these evil days. So first of all, let's look at this word evil. What does Paul mean by evil? Like, is he talking about the zombie apocalypse? Turns out, no, he's not. So one thing we have to understand about the Bible is that it wasn't written in English. The second part of the Bible was actually written in this language called Greek. And the original word there, sometimes they don't translate exactly into the words that we have in English. So the word that he used for evil actually means like miscellaneous or annoyances. So let me explain. What Paul is actually saying here is that you have a ton going on in your life anyway. So as middle schoolers, you guys have friends and sports that you're a part of and free time, and you have school and homework, right? So Paul is saying use your time well. Maybe dating right now in middle school is a part of God's plan for you, but maybe it's a distraction. So I would say the next best step for you to decide whether or not dating right now is wise would be to talk to your parents. So at this point, you might be like, okay, Kristen, get to the point. What are you actually trying to say? And here it is. Here's my point. Don't make anyone your everything. So you might be wondering, what does that actually mean? Don't make anyone your everything. But here's what I mean. You are a child of God. And that means that you are a complete and whole person because God made you that way. Another person isn't going to make you more complete or better. God is the only thing that can make you complete. So when you hear people say that when they get into a relationship with a boy or girl, they complete them or they're their other half, you have to understand that that's not actually how it works. God is the only one who completes us. And when we put other people in the place where God should be in our life, we will often be let down because humans are all sinful and we all make mistakes. So that's why it's dangerous to become so obsessed with a person to the point where they're the only person you think about or spend time with, because the only person that should be in that spot in your life is God. So how do we do this? How do we make sure that we put God as our priority and not another person? Well, I have 3 things for you as a place to start. And here's the first one. Get a life. Now, I know that might sound kind of rude, but that's not what I mean. What I mean is that we are people who are meant to live in community, meaning we're supposed to have friends. We're supposed to hang out with other people in our life. And when I say friends, I mean plural, more than one person. Make sure that you're not abandoning the rest of your friends when you have interest in another person. And number 2, remember, if you're not dating, you are a complete and whole person made by God, and you don't have to be dating in order to be made complete. But also remember, if you're not interested in dating at all right now, that's okay. But listen up, because this is important things for you to know for when you do get to a place where you're ready to date. And number 3, maybe after hearing the main point tonight that we shouldn't make anyone our everything, maybe you have some questions and you want to know what's wise for your life. And I think the biggest and most important step for all of you tonight in that place would be to talk to either your parents or some of the adult leaders here at NxtGen. Maybe it's best for you to talk to both, but talk to an adult in your life who you trust and can help you figure out what's wise and what God has for you right now in middle school. Well, NxtGen, thanks so much for listening tonight. I hope you guys have an awesome week, and we'll see you soon.